Good morning and welcome to FlossTube number 34. Look at me, I'm back after just 2 weeks. I'm trying to do these more frequently. I would really like to do these every 2 weeks. My name is Christine. I am CMD586 on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, follow me there. If you're not on Instagram, why aren't you not on Instagram? It's a great place for stitchers. Speaking of places for stitchers, I've heard a lot of talk lately about Instagram versus Facebook, and I have to say I agree with some people who say that like Instagram is a much like lower key, less dramatic place for stitchers than Facebook. I'm not leaving Facebook anytime soon. But Facebook seems to require a thicker skin, and I guess I do want to talk about something. I don't want this to become a rant. This really isn't intended to be a rant, I promise, and hopefully it doesn't come across that way. More of a PSA. I think we all would do well to remember that Facebook is not a democracy. That the groups that we join on Facebook, they're not democracies. Our personal wall, personal, like whatever you call it, your own Facebook page, is not a democracy. You're in charge of that page. You're in charge of the content you put on that page, to the extent that it follows Facebook's general guidelines. It's up to you what you put on that page, and you don't need to conform to anybody else's standards unless you want to. And the same goes for Facebook groups, big and small. Stitch Mania being, the largest, and then the smaller groups too. All have, generally speaking, they're all created by one or a handful of people, and that one or handful of people sets the standards and the rules of behavior and posts and things like that. And the most groups, and the good ones certainly, ask you some questions before you join and encourage you or require you to read the rules of the group before you start posting on there. And those rules and guidelines should serve as like a content warning to you about, not just about what you can and can't post there, but what you might see there that you may or may not wish to see. So I recently had an experience. I kind of minimize my Facebook posting, because I have learned the hard way that posting on Facebook, even if I think that what I'm posting, even if I have no expectation that what I'm posting is going to inspire controversy or like a negative response, sometimes it does, and sometimes I'm shocked by that response. I had an experience very recently that it was not upsetting to me. Sometimes it has been upsetting to me. I've made mistakes, as we all have. I've made missteps where I posted something that I thought was perfectly fine, and then I was educated and learned that maybe it wasn't as fine as I thought it was, or maybe it wasn't appropriate for the place I posted it, or I upset somebody unintentionally, or whatever. And then, of course, there are times where I've posted things that I still know were fine, but they inspired a degree of vitriol that did upset me. And, and I learned a hard lesson from those things, either to, grow a thicker skin, or to not post those things, or to just, to think twice before I make a post on Facebook. This is not that. I'm not upset by what happened. But I did manage to upset a couple of people. I made a post that I would not make on every site, in every group, and I won't even share it with you on this channel. Not only because, number one, because I'm not seeking to like call out anyone in particular, draw particular attention to something and be like, these people, so I won't repost it on here. But also because my standard for my YouTube channel is tamer than my standard for myself, if that makes sense. I want my YouTube channel to largely be, although I'm not interested in conforming to absolutely everybody's standards, in general, I want parents to not be worried about like their child overhearing the things I'm saying or walking by my video and seeing something that might give their child an education that child's not ready for. Like my standard for this channel is tighter than the standards for my own life and the standards for my own child, even when he was growing up and stuff like that. I just want to be a little bit, I don't want somebody in general not being able to watch my channel because they're afraid of what they might hear or see on that channel. So this thing that I shared, I wouldn't share on this channel. But it did fit within the guidelines of this group that I shared it on, and I knew that to be the case, and so I shared something, and I got mostly the expected response. I got 99% of the people laughing and getting it, and thinking it was just perfectly fine and dandy for the place I posted it. But then there were a couple of people who were like, oh, this is awful. This is beyond the pale. This is, this is not what I want to see popping up in my, unexpectedly on my newsfeed, etc. But, and that they expressed that they thought it should come with a content warning, be buried in the comments, etc. And I disagreed. I don't think we need to necessarily put a content. I think your content warning, your trigger warning, etc. is in the rules of the site and in the questions that you're asked before you join the site. And if it's not, then chances are what I'm posting isn't appropriate for the site. But if the rules of the site are that things can be graphic, that things can be violent, that they can be sexual, that they can have language in them, etc., then there's your warning. You don't need to necessarily have an additional warning so that those kinds of things don't pop up unexpectedly on your wall, because you have joined this site, you've joined this group deliberately, and you know that these are the kinds of things that might be on this site, and so you should not be surprised nor offended or triggered. I don't like the word offended. I don't like the word triggered. You should not be upset by something that fits within the guidelines that pops up on your wall because you're part of this closed group. And if you are upset by it, then you need to take responsibility for that, but not expect others to go beyond the rules and guidelines of a group for your comfort. Does that make sense? Anyway, so I just I just think it's important for all of us to remember that different places have different standards, and it's not a democracy, and that we need to remember and abide by and be willing to accept not only the rules that restrict our own behavior, but the rules that do or don't, are maybe too permissive for our taste, and either be able to scroll on by rapidly enough that it doesn't upset you, or accept those bad feelings, or don't join the group. So anyway, hopefully that didn't seem like too much of a rant. And I'm really not trying to call out anybody in particular. So, I'm not interested in bullying anybody. I think that the people who were upset by my post were genuinely upset. I assume they were genuinely upset. I don't think that is my responsibility. But because I think there's a place for everything, and that there should be places where it's appropriate to post things that are not appropriate to post everywhere. And I'm not going to apologize for that. But I think we all just need to take care of ourselves and certainly not accept bad behavior. If the group is supposed to be all hearts and flowers, then it needs to be all hearts and flowers, and people in that group have the right to expect it to be all hearts and flowers. But if other content is acceptable within the rules, then we shouldn't be getting upset when that content maybe hits a sensitive nerve. If we know that that's the kind of thing that we're going to maybe be subjected to in that environment, we need to be okay with that, or we need to protect ourselves and remove ourselves from that environment. That's all. So anyway, oh, look at my mug. My nerdy, only slightly dirty mug. Practice safe text. Use commas and never miss a period. Okay, so moving on. Last time we spoke, I had a rather large haul. This time I've been a good girl and have not purchased much. The only thing I have to show you is my local Joann. I've never seen this at my Joann before, but my local Joann has started carrying the Punch, Needle, and Primitive Stitcher, a magazine I've long intended to pick up, but have not, because it hasn't been convenient. It's a pretty thick magazine. $8.99 is the U.S. retail price, and I'll do a quick flip through. I'm pretty happy with it. For a while I've been intending to get into Punch Needle, but there's also plenty of non-Punch Needle in here. You get the contents. And a note from the editor. And we get our first flag. This is from Twin Peak Primitives. I like a lot of patterns by Twin Peak Primitives. They are lovely ladies, and they make great patterns. It is all in DMC, a nice big DMC floss list for the pattern, and also some background. And I'm not going to show you the pattern itself. The pattern itself is black and white. It's reasonably sized. 2 pages. 2 8.5 by 11 pages. So for that pattern, you can get an idea of how big that is. Okay, we have a punch needle designed by Janine Happ of Two Old Crows, Gentle Soul. It's a black bear with bluebirds. It's very sweet. I live with blackbird bears, and we have them wandering down our street on a pretty regular basis. I have to say they're a little less sweet than that. And then it gives you this is the instructions on how to do it, and then it gives and then there's the pattern. Yeah. Anyway, I haven't done any punch needles since I was a little kid, so and the ones I did were iron-on, and these are not iron-on. So, but they give you some instructions on how to transfer pattern. So, I'm just clueless. Punch needle is on my list of things to try. And there is a handkerchief sampler by Shakespeare's Peddler. That's not really my thing. But Shakespeare's Peddler, she's a lovely lady. And it gives you the floss list. And it looks like it's Weeks Dye Works. They do give you, there is a DMC conversion. And there's a paragraph that Teresa, wait, I got her name right? Teresa Vanette of Shakespeare's Peddler, paragraph that Teresa wrote, and with some about how what the handkerchief and sampler was inspired by, etc. And there's a DMC conversion if you don't want to use the Weeks or the Gentle Arts. There's instructions and a good size pattern. Another punch needle design. This one is Curious Caitlin, designed by Roberta Jackson of Dogwood Tales Arts. A couple of pages of instructions and the pattern, and I like this one. I really like Barbara Anna. I have got to do a Barbara Anna one of these days because I have not done any Barbara Anna yet, but I like so many of her designs. Strawberry Time by Barbara Anna. That's really cute. I just love Barbara Anna. Floss is in, she provides DMC and Sullivan's, so no fancy flosses. That pattern is full color. Another punch needle. It looks like we alternate between punch needle and cross stitch. A Rainbow Smiles the Clouds Away, by Barbara Shores of Village Folk Art. Instructions and the pattern. Next one is Small Treasures by Rebecca Noland of Lucy Beam. Just a little itty bitty pattern. Gentle Arts threads and DMC conversion. Okay. Punch needle Libby. Oh, this is cute. Designed by Nancy Arano of the Cooperage. Libby. Oh boy. You know, I would hesitate to use Gentle Arts. This is Thread Gather Sheep Silk Threads. I might change my mind someday. You know, I love my fancy flosses, but I know that punch needle uses a lot more floss than cross stitch does, and that could get expensive. Summer Roses by Sub Rosa Design. This is pretty. That's nice. I like that. Oh. Okay. There's an article. Oh, okay. It's the Creative Twist by Creative Twist with Vonna Pfeiffer. She says, "Happy summer, y'all. Grab a big old glass of lemonade and sit yourself down a spell. This Creative Twist project is going to take a bit of explaining. It's a big project and rather difficult. Here's what we are going to make: a display and storage box for seasonal monthly designs." So she's going to show you how to make that. And there are several pages with good full color pictures of how to make the project. And it doesn't include, I don't believe it includes the patterns. I think it's for the finishing, and the idea is that you are, that you choose your own, own pieces to decorate it. Yeah, wow. So lots of pictures. Okay. So Baba Blackbird. Oh, I like this one. By Michelle L. Palmer of Painting with Threads. And the punch needle. I like that one. It's a little more complex than some of the others. Probably not one I would start with. By My Hands, 1803, by Teresa Miller of Teresa's Primitive Treasures. Passing the Time, designed by Rose Clay of Three Sheep Studio. That's really neat. I think those finer details would be more difficult for a beginner myself too, so I have to be careful about what I choose for my first punch needle. Prim Sewing Basket Pin Keep by Not Forgotten Farm. Summer Salt Box by Kathy Brown of the Teacher's Pet. I like that. Wool Keeper by Teresa Kogut. Ooh, this is neat. Under the Blooms, designed by Julie Thomas of the Old Tattered Flag. I like that. Look at that. Cut Your Thistles. Aw, Lindy Stitches, Stephanie. Cut Your Thistles, designed by Stephanie Webb of Lindy Stitches. Cut your thistles before St. John, or you will have two instead of one. I like this pattern. I've seen this before. I didn't realize that it was in this magazine. So that was a nice surprise. My Favorite Things by Deb Bedreau of Rustic Country Handcrafts. Oh, this is nice too. I Believe in Mermaids by The Primitive Hare. God, I love The Primitive Hare. I'm not big into mermaids, but I love The Primitive Hare. I would stitch that. Probably stitch it and give it to somebody who was big into mermaids. And that is it. Yeah. Ugh. So a few ads at the end. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. There are several things in there that I would like to do, even if I'm not ready to yet embark on my punch needle adventure. There's several cross-stitch designs in there that I would be thrilled to do. Okay, so that's the extent of my haul. So now my whips. I worked on 3 things this past 2 weeks, and one I finished. Well, 3 cross-stitch things. I also took up another craft that that may be my downfall, but financially and otherwise. But 3 cross-stitch projects. I finished one, and I had a new start, so I am still at 50 whips, and then I worked on something. So first, my finish. Let me show you where it was when last you saw it. Is my Yellow Submarine by Blackbird Design. Last time I was here, I said I didn't know what the fabric was. I do now. God, that's so great, isn't it? This is done on Amsterdam Blue by Zweigert. It's in 28 count. This is 90% of the called for colors. There's a couple that I altered, but this is 90% the called for. The ones I altered are My Blue is Freedom instead of Old Tin Bucket. Tin Bucket, not Old Tin Bucket. Freedom instead of Tin Bucket, because I didn't have Tin Bucket. I should have Tin Bucket soon with my 3 Owl Threads subscription, but I don't have Tin Bucket. And Bayberry I couldn't find, so I did... So the darker kind of bluish green is supposed to be Bayberry, and I used Peacock for it. And then Mountain Mist. I think it's called Mountain Mist. I did have, but I just didn't like it. And so for the lighter blues, I used Caribbean Seas by Jodrey Designs, which I think is a lovely floss. So that is it. Everything else is the called for. And I really love this. And I've decided for the time being that I'm keeping the pattern. I don't know if I'll ever stitch it again or not, but I just don't feel like getting rid of it, so I'm gonna keep it for now. Okay, so there's that. I finished that, and then I wouldn't have had a new start, except that every year at Halloween I participate in Carla and Leo's. My friend Carla Eldridge, I'll put a link to her below if I can remember to do so. Her she does this with her friend Lenore. She hosts this Carla and Leo's Halloween stitch along, and every year they feature a couple of designers and well, one or two designers and their patterns, Halloween themed patterns. The patterns aren't free, you have to go buy them. But then you just stitch along starting August 15th until whenever you're done. And so this year it's Doreen Jones and I forget who else, but I will provide a link to the Facebook group below. And I am doing it's called Spooky Halloween by Doreen Jones. It was you can't find it on Doreen Jones' Etsy site. It's one of the Lakeside Needlecraft. It was a Sal. So I got the pattern, PDF pattern through Lakeside Needlecraft, and here is a picture of that pattern. And here is my start. And I'm doing this on 35 count Weeks Die Works. I know a lot of people don't like Weeks Die Works, but I do. 35 count Weeks Die Works in the color Pumpkin, which is utterly appropriate. So that's my little start on that. I think I only worked one day on it. And then I did put in some work on my Undersea Kingdom by Reolus. Here is what it will look like when it's finished. I'm not going to show you a picture of where I was when last you saw it, because although I did do several hundred stitches in it, I made good progress. You can't really see it. I don't think you'll notice, because I filled in a lot of stuff. I'm really kind of working to get this stuff filled in as I go, and so there's where I am now. This is just one of my favorite things ever, this octopus. Undersea Kingdom, kit by Reolus. I'm using the fabric that it came with, which is unusual for kits for me, but not unusual for Reolus kits, at least not the wool kits. You kind of need, in my opinion, the wool threads kind of need a larger count. They're great on the Ada. I tried them on equivalent count even weave fabric, and they just didn't really work. So that is what those are the only things I've worked on the last 2 weeks. Before I go on to non-cross stitch things, of which I have a few, I want to, I'm bound and determined, although this sounds like famous last words, and when it comes down to it, I'll do whatever I want. But I am bound and determined to keep myself at or below 50 whips. Right now, I don't seem to have it in me to get my whips really knocked down, but I do not want more than 50 whips. For me, there's something about that seems catastrophic, and I just don't want to go there. But oh my goodness, so many things are calling to me right now. So as I do when I'm trying not to buy things, sometimes I will share with you the things I wish I could buy, but I'm resisting. In this case, I'm going to share with you all of the things, not all of the things, a handful of the things that at the moment are calling very strongly to me and that I wish I could start. But I'm not going to until I can at least finish one thing. because I am at 50 whips right now. So, and I think I've had requests for people who want to see like all of the things that I have kitted up and stuff like that. And, I don't want to do that. Not that I have an enormous amount of kits, but it's just, I have a lot of online patterns. I have a lot of fabric. I have a lot of floss. Like, I don't really want to show everything. It would be, I'm sure I wouldn't even manage to show everything if I showed everything. So I'm just going to show some of the things that are calling very strongly to me that I could start, but that I'm resisting starting. So, first off, you saw this one last week. The Sweetheart Tree. This one's high on my list. Early to stitch this up and finish it somehow, or have it finished somehow, possibly by Ivana, and set it at my desk at my work. Today is a good day for a good day. So that one. And that would be a quick finish. At least a quick stitch. Probably a matter of... Oh gosh, I could conceivably get this done in 1 to 2 days. It's just a little thing. Oh, I gotta... Okay. Another thing. This pile. I bought these on sale a few years ago from Brooks Books. Got a very good price on them. All of the Witchy Sisters. I think it's all of them. Like 10 of them by Brooks Books. I'm not even going to show you to you individually. Here we go. But, and the reason I haven't stitched these, the main reason I haven't stitched these is that each one of these little suckers, it's only DMC. Well, no, it's not only DMC. It's DMC is the primary floss, which is I've got a master set, so that's no problem. But they require different colors of perforated paper, some of which I have. So it requires different colors of perforated paper, and they all require some seed beads and Krynic, and that's basically it. But you know, each of these little things, I would have to go and like place orders, and I don't have everything I need. In most cases, I don't have the perforated paper. And in almost all cases, if not all cases, I don't have the beads and Krynic, etc. required. So that's why I haven't started any of those. I just have to decide I'm going to kit one up and do it. So, which I should. So that I want to happen. Those are calling to me. They're making me feel a little guilty because I went through, I bought them all at once and I intended to do them, and now they're just sitting here, and they've been just sitting here for years. So, which is one of the problems of buying things. This one I got once upon a time from Bendy Stitchy. I believe I bought it from Bendy Stitchy. One of the Cottage Garden series, the Songbird Garden series. This is number 4, Hope. Have you seen the latest? I think it's Dream. Whatever her latest one was, with the pumpkin on it. Oh God, I really want to do that one. But this one, I would like to do. These are all so beautiful. And I definitely want to do that. And these call for Weeks Dye Works, none of which I have. Obviously, you can do them in DMC, but I'll probably want to get the Weeks Dye Works to do them in. And I'm not sure what fabric I'd want to do them in. 36 count, probably something or other. Oh, they use 36 count Dove linen from Weeks Dye Works. Well, I like Weeks, so I would want to purchase that. I just have to decide to do it. This one, I could do anytime I want because I have all of it. It's a kit. Candy Cane of Christmas. This is one of a handful of this series that I have. This one is my favorite of all of them that I have. I have 2 Charlie Harpers that I recently bought, and both of these I really, really want to stitch. The Mother Love from Above. The giraffes, mother and baby giraffe. And these are all, though it's, you know, just DMC and a handful of just like 6 colors. So, and I have plenty of fabric that I could start that on, so that would be easy. This one has a little bit more involved in it, but Peer Group. A little more involved, but I could still probably get that started right away. Yeah, I'd like to do a Charlie Harper very soon. This one is all kitted up and ready to go, I believe, thanks to Bendy Stitchy. It's a Just Nan. I love Just Nan. I have yet to stitch Just Nan. I have several Just Nans in my possession, and I haven't stitched any of them. Another one I have that's high on my list to do that I should have dug out and brought to show you is Peacock Majesty. But this one, which I do have all kitted up and ready to go, so I should start it. I went through a fair amount of trouble to get it kitted up, and then didn't start it. This one, though, is Tinsel Tapestry. I bought the full kit from Bendy Stitchy. It is an anchor kit, which I have limited experience with Anchor Floss. Anchor Floss, based on my limited experience, is not my favorite, but I'll do it in the floss that it's kitted up with, because why not? I'm always open to doing something different. Then this one, I love this thing. The only thing stopping me from stitching this right now, let me see, let me see what the called for. Oh, it's DMC. But what's stopping me from stitching this right now is I absolutely want to stitch this on 36 count gingerbread by Picture This Plus. I believe gingerbread is what they're using in this. Is that what they're using? Does it not say? They use 40 count gingerbread. I want to use 36 count and do it in 2 strands because that's my absolute favorite. So I want to stitch this one. So the only thing that's stopping me with that one is that I have to purchase the fabric, because even though I absolutely love it, I don't currently have any gingerbread in any count that's not already being used. This one I bought at StitchCon, at Keepsakes during StitchCon. Coastal Cola. I think I mostly have the threads I need for it. If not, if there's a couple that I don't have, I can substitute, but I think I mostly have them. I bought a few of them, but a couple of them weren't available at the time I made the 1, 2, 3 stitch order, and but I may have got them since, I can't remember. But in any case, I could totally start this like today if I wanted, except I'm not doing anything today. But I got 32 count vintage blue Whisper Belfast linen, which I believe is the called for. Yeah, Blue Whisper linen. Yes, Blue Whisper linen Belfast. 32 count. It's exactly the called for. Oh, that doesn't look very good. Let me see if I fold it up. You can see it better. Yeah. So it's just a very subtle, like summer sky model look. And God, I love this. There is something about this pattern that just really tickles my fancy. I'm a fan, although I've yet to do any. I'm a fan of Silver Creek samplers, and but this will be my first that I've done by them, and yeah, I really want to do that one. I opened this one, but I didn't start it. I don't know why I opened it. Maybe I was going to start it and then I didn't. Millhill Buttons and Beads, Play Ball. Really like that. That's a reminds me of my dad type thing. But I'm already stitching something for him. Or I don't know if it's for him. He doesn't care enough about cross stitch that I don't know if I would actually give it to him, but think of him while I'm stitching it and think of him when it's hanging on my wall. This Ink Circles, the Masquerade. I don't have fabric for it. I have had fabric for it, but I ended up using that fabric for something else. Let's see. They used Lakeside Linen's Tarnished Silver 40 count. I probably won't do that. I don't know what I'll use. This is Gentle Arts Sampler Threads. Yeah. It looks a little funny. I don't understand. Gentle Art Sampler Threads and Gentle Art Sampler Threads. I don't understand why there's two columns here. Gentle Art Sampler Threads and Gentle Art Sampler Threads. I don't understand why it's in two columns. But whatever. They're all the same threads. So I don't get it, but that's okay. But anyway, I almost certainly have, I believe I have all of the Gentle Arts required for that. I just need to figure out a fabric. And something I have might even work for it. Oh, this one. I'm a long ways from being able to start this, though I really want to. I mean, not really. I mean, I can place an order at 123 Stitch anytime and get all the stuff I need right away, right? But it's the Cricut collection, and it's Halloween Eve. Man, I love the Cricut collection. God, I just love the Cricut collection. This is definitely a changing taste thing, because years ago, the Cricut collection, I would have been like, no. Too cutesy, too prim, etc. for me. But I love the Cricut collection now. But I believe what is my hesitation on this one. Yeah. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. 10 different Krynics called for in this sucker. Which I will get and I will use. But like that's kind of a significant expense for this little, and I don't know what fabric I would use. I might have fabric that would work for this already. They use 30 count 18th century grape linen by R&R Productions. I don't think I've ever used an R&R Productions. I don't know. I might seek that out or just find something else that would work. But it's really the Krynic that's slowing down the start on that one. If I had all that Krynic, I probably would have already started this. This one, God, I love this one. Rosewood Manor. Y'all know I just love Rosewood Manor. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all, by Emily Dickinson. I just love that. Love it, love it. Pasta Time by Soda Stitch. I could start this one anytime. I would use a fabric similar to that. I already have some in stock. I'm not a store. I already have some on hand in my stash. I love this. I could start this anytime. And then Victoria Sampler. Some of these I have fabric for, some I don't have fabric for, but the big thing with these is having the embellishment pack with all the special stuff. The first one is this Southern Garden sampler. And I have several other Victoria samplers that I'm not showing right now, but these are just the ones that I would like to start today. That I'm not starting today, but I would like to start them today. U is for Usher. And I is for Ice Skater. I've got this one for free. Look at that, it says free on it. I got it for free from the lovely Pamela Hoover McIntosh at Stitcher's Paradise, because I bought some other things and she thought I should have this pattern and this sampler, the accessory pack for free. She's an amazing lady. Okay, and so that is all of the things that are calling to me right this second that I wish I was stitching, that I'm not going to stitch yet. And exercise some self-control. So, that's the end of the stitching. So, if you are only here for the stitching and you're not interested in anything else, then see ya. Although you might want to fast forward a ways if you like my husband, because I think he is going to make an appearance. So, you know, feel free to skip a little ways. But you know, you might hang out. So I took up crocheting. Specifically, I want to crochet blankets, Afghans. I've tried knitting, and I've taken up knitting several times in my lifetime, and I always put it down pretty quickly. I start, and then I'm like, nope. There are problems I have with knitting that are not problems I have with crocheting. Not that crocheting is perfect and knitting is terrible. It's just that there's a couple of specific things that are problematic for me about knitting that are improved by crochet. So at least so far. I mean, I'm a beginner at both crafts. So I took up crocheting, and I just got it in my head that I wanted to make myself a blanket and that I want to make other people blankets. Anyway, I don't even know how I got into my head, but I'll link it below. I found a beginner blanket crochet video that made me think I could do it. And the pattern did appeal to me, and I decided to crochet this blanket, and I've made a good start on it, and I'm not really putting it down. Like, I'm picking it up almost every day and making good progress on it. And I am hesitant to actually physically show it to you because, you know, I'm really new at it. I haven't crocheted since I was a child. And although I thought I understood some things in everything, you know, as I watched the video and I read through the pattern, there were clearly some things I didn't quite grasp until I kind of got into the process. And I'm not willing to start over, but the beginning of my blanket is a little wonky. But that's okay. It's going to be usable, and I will be able to tell from the beginning, those first, like, several inches, where I was not, you know, grasping some of the concepts, where I wasn't quite understanding the things that the lady was saying on the video and the things that were said in the pattern. And, but nevertheless, I will sort of show it to you. So this is, yeah, see this? This is me not knowing what I'm doing, but that's okay. I don't care. I'm keeping it. I'm not gonna undo it and start over. And then I got to where I was like, oh, okay, now I understand what I'm doing. So, yeah. So, and it's done in double crochet clusters. So it's very pretty and it's very soft, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money, so I'm using worsted weight. It calls for worsted weight. I'm using the weight and the size hook and stuff that's called for, and but I'm using, like, basically cheap yarn. I'm using Lion brand Pound of Love. They sell these big pound, oh, I don't have it in here. Anyway, it's going to be 2 colors. It's going to be 4 stripes, like there's going to be 4 sections, and in 2 different colors, and the other color is going to be like taupe. I was limited because I wanted to stick with this brand throughout the blanket, and so, but this is a beginner thing, and it's going to lay on our bed, and then after that I might do it again, or do a different pattern maybe, that'll be a gift. I kind of want to make my son he likes things like blankets and cozy things like that, and he's got some favorite colors and stuff like that. So I think I'd like to make him something that he can have on his bed in his dorm room, and feel cozy in colors that he likes. And so that would be maybe my second one. So, but this one's gonna be for us. So I started that. Also on my last video, I told you I was going to start talking about books in my videos. And this is actually shaping up to be a fairly long video in spite of it only being 2 weeks. I thought I needed to come up with a bunch of stuff to say. Apparently I do not. I only worked on 3 things and I had minimal haul, and yet here we are at 53 minutes. Oh no, but there's something going to be cut out of this, so it's not 53 minutes. It's not as bad. Anyway, I read some books, and I want to talk to you about some of them. So I'll save the best for last, the one that you guys will mostly be interested. I read some kids' books. I was too big for my britches by the time I got to be about 8 or 9 years old when I was a little girl, and I basically stopped reading kids' books for the most part because I was a really good reader, and I was like, I don't need to read kids' books. I'll read grown-up books. And so I missed out on a lot of things. And so as an adult, I have been making a very conscious effort to not only partly to return and read some things I know I missed out on when I was a kid, but also, to just read more kids' books in general, even modern ones, because there's some good stuff out there. And, just because you're old enough to read grown-up books doesn't mean that kids' books aren't well worth reading. So anyway, I read two books by Mary Downing Hahn. I will show you a picture of their covers because I read them digitally, so I do not have them in my possession. The first one I read is called Deep and Dark and Dangerous, and it was originally published in 2007. And these 2 books are both, they're both very similar to each other. They're spooky stories. They're ghost stories, which I also really like. I like certain kinds of horror, supernatural stuff. I have my lines, but I like that stuff. So Deep and Dark and Dangerous, and the other one is called Wait Till Helen Comes. And Deep and Dark and Dangerous was published in 2007, and Wait Till Helen Comes is published in 1986. And I had heard about the book when I was a kid, but I didn't read it because by then I was about 12 years old and I was well beyond reading children's books. So the books are written for about that preteen to early teen age group. They involve kids who are about that age. And anyway, there's a lot of good in these books. There's something that really bothers me about them, but they are very atmospheric. They're very well written in terms of the ghost story, and the settings are really compelling. And Deep and Dark and Dangerous, this young girl goes to stay with her aunt and look after her. She's 13, I think, and she's going to stay with her aunt, and she's supposed to be looking after her cousin who is about to go into kindergarten, but it's the summertime, and they're staying at this lake in this cottage, and it's very spooky and foreboding and very interesting. And the ghost story aspect of it is really well done, and the characters are well drawn, and I found myself, really getting into the adventure of it and the suspense of it, and I very much liked that part of it. And then what I didn't like, I'll talk about after I tell you about the other book. Wait Till Helen Comes is somewhat similar, although it was written in 1986. These 2 children, they're 3 children actually, a brother and sister whose mom and stepfather have recently married, and they have a much younger stepdaughter. So the main kids, I think, are about 10 and 12 years old. They're the older kids and sort of the protagonists. And their stepsister, their new stepsister, is 7, and her mother is deceased in a fire. and her father has remarried their mother. And there's a lot of family conflict. The 7-year-old is really deeply unhappy. 3 years ago, her mother died in a fire, and she's never been the same. And which, of course, she wouldn't be. But there's like secrets, there's reasons why she's really having problems. And the dad is, very like focused on, even though he's remarried and he now has these other 2 older children that he's supposed to love, he's very, very focused on his daughter and her needs. And their mother is, trying to be a good mom to both her children and her stepdaughter. But the little girl is really hard to love and hard to deal with, because she's deeply unhappy and traumatized. Anyway, the parents announce at the beginning of the summer that they are moving their kids, all 3 of them, to another part of the country and out in the middle of nowhere. They have bought a church that has been remodeled into a house, and they're moving them. And of course the kids 10 and 12 years old are, totally thrown for a loop and dismayed, and but the parents are like, yeah, we're doing this, yeah, pack your stuff, and moves these kids out to live in this church in basically the middle of nowhere. There's there's like swampland and a lake and some woods, and there's a town that you have to walk to, and I think it's going to take them a while to get to school on the bus, but this is the start of the summer, so they don't have to worry about that yet. Anyway, they move into this church, and attached to this church is an old graveyard that has long since been filled up, and so it doesn't have any new graves in it, but it's an old graveyard. And the older girl is very sort of superstitious, and she's kind of freaked out by this, and the boy is more of a scientifically minded, very rational kid, and he's like, meh, whatever, and he's interested in bugs and things like that. He's not bothered by the graveyard. Of course, the graveyard is haunted. The ghost that haunts the graveyard is malevolent, and there's lots of scary things that happen, and lots of secrets revealed, and we eventually figure out why the little girl is as unhappy as she is, and solve the problem. And we get, and this family is really struggling to be a family. The mother and father love each other, but they're having trouble with each other's children, and the children are having trouble with each other, and it's a big mess, kind of realistic, but in the end, you get a very uplifting ending that's really good. But here's the problem I have with both of these books. The kids are great, and there's lots of interesting things going on, and the atmosphere is wonderful. But the big problem I have with these books is the parents and parent figures. They are terrible. Now, I don't think every book, I think there's definitely a place in children's literature for imperfect families, because lots of children have imperfect families and they need to read about people that they can relate to. But these are supposed to be good parents. They're not supposed to be perfect parents, but they're supposed to be good parents. We're supposed to forgive them for their behaviors and stuff. We're supposed to understand them. We're supposed to understand that they love their children and that they're doing the best they can. Well, I can tell you these parents are not easy to forgive. The parent and parent figures in both of these books are terrible. Terrible. And at the end of the books, we're supposed to be like, oh yeah, they're going to be a great family and everything's fine. But I have a hard time forgiving the behavior of the parents in these books. And I don't need to really get into the nitty-gritty of it. But if you read these books as an adult, I think you will find the behavior of these parents to be pretty unforgivable in some circumstances, and if I was reading them as a kid, I would find them very frustrating at the very least to read about these parents and the way that they are treating their children and what they're setting their children up for. And because both of these books have that, I've only read, to my knowledge, I've only ever read 2 books of Mary Downing Hahn, and maybe her, maybe other of her books. I'm going to try to read some more of hers, but maybe others of her books are different. Maybe it's just a coincidence that both of these are like this, but she must have had, she used to be a librarian. I don't know if she, I don't recall if she ever had children, but she either had very bad parents herself, or perhaps in working like in the school district, because I think she was a school librarian, perhaps working in the like the school district and stuff like that, her experience of people's parents, of the parents of children, is like really bad because her expectations of these parents are extremely low. And yet they're supposed to be sort of normal and understandable, and we're supposed to accept that they love their kids and that they're doing their best, etc., blah, 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 and forgive them in the end. And I'm like, these people suck. And I have a very, very, very hard time getting past my disgust about the parental behavior to a place of like forgiveness, and now that this family's going to be okay. So anyway, there's my problem with it. I rated, on Goodreads, I rated Deep and Dark and Dangerous a 3. Because the parental behavior in it, the authority figure behavior in it was really, really that detrimental as far as I was concerned. In Wait Till Helen Comes, it was still pretty darn bad, but the end story was so uplifting for me that I was able to rate it 4 stars, because I really very much appreciated the final outcome of some of the messages that were in that book. I really greatly appreciated, and it made up for a lot. So those 2 books, if you want to read some good but problematic like kids spooky stories, give those a try. Another thing I read, and I'll show you a picture of it. This is Tom's Midnight Garden graphic novel adaptation. So here it is. It's a picture of it. I did read the physical copy of this book, but it's a library book, and it's back at the library now. So, Tom's Midnight Garden is written by Philippa Pierce. And it was written in the early 60s, I believe. And I read it when I was a child. I read the original story, the novel, when I was a child. I was probably, I was born in 74. So obviously I didn't read it when it came out. But I think I was 7 or 8 years old when I read it. But I remember loving this book. And it's a story about Tom, who has been exiled to his... I don't remember. I think it's his aunt's and uncle's place. He has been exiled from his house because his little brother I believe his little brother has the measles, and they don't want him to get the measles, but they also need to send him to where he won't be exposing other people to measles in case he already has the measles and they just don't know it yet. So he gets sent to live off in I think it's like an apartment building with his aunt and uncle. And it's not a very nice place. It's kind of a dingy apartment building. It's a kind of building where the apartments are like inside, and so there's kind of there's common hallways and stairways and stuff like that. But he lives in an apartment. He goes to stay in his apartment with his aunt and uncle, who are basically, there's nothing there for him. There's some books that aren't really his style, and there's no place to play, and he's just got this room, and this room has bars on the windows, and it's just very boring. His aunt and uncle are nice to him, but it's a very boring environment, and there is a grandfather clock in the hallway that belongs to communal hallway that belongs to the landlord of the building. And one night he realizes that the grandfather clock is striking 13. Tom's having trouble sleeping. He's bored out of his mind. He's very isolated. And there's no place to play. Like, there's no garden or anything like that. But anyway, this clock strikes 13, and he's like, what the hell? And so he goes out and he investigates, and he decides to open the back door, which his uncle has told him not to bother doing because there's nothing of interest out there. And he opens the door after this clock has struck 13. He opens the door, and there is a beautiful garden out there. And he goes out into the garden and he plays all night, and he comes back in the morning. He's not getting any sleep. And he's kind of angry because he's like, why would you lie to me about this garden that exists? And he nudges his grandparent, his aunt and uncle, and he's like, lying's wrong, blah, 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 isn't it? He doesn't understand why they won't tell him about this garden that exists. Anyway, of course, the garden doesn't really exist in the way that, in a non-supernatural way. But anyway, so he goes out into this garden like every night, and he meets people from a different time and has these adventures and makes friends and has this amazing experience. And anyway, it was a very memorable book for me when I was a child. And there's time travel and some supernatural elements and love and friendship and just some really neat things in it. And the graphic novel adaptation is a modern graphic novel adaptation. It's really, I think it's pretty recent, and it was really good. I haven't read Tom's Midnight Garden, the novel, since I was a small child, but it made a big impression on me, and my impression is that this graphic novelization is fairly faithful adaptation. And it was definitely an understandable story, and I enjoyed it a lot. So, finally, the last book I read, and which I hope you've stuck around to hear about, is An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good. And, of course, you get exactly one guess as to why I picked this book up. It's a library book, but I read it over the weekend. I discovered this book on a website I visit frequently, Book Riot. They had this article, 50 must-read fiction books about featuring older women. So, An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good. This is actually 5 connected short stories about the same character named Maud. Maud is an 88-year-old woman. She's living in Sweden. This is translated. Living in Sweden, and in this big apartment by herself. She's got unusual circumstances. She inherited this apartment. She lives there alone. She hasn't always been alone, but she has been alone for like decades now. And the other people of the apartment complex resent her because she lives there for free because of some strange circumstance of the will. And so she doesn't have to pay rent, and her apartment is very desirable. And basically that she's not any trouble to anybody. She just kind of wants to be left alone and to live her life and do what she wants, which I think is something most all of us can relate to, particularly as we get older. And she is willing to do whatever it takes to have what she wants, which for the most part is just a peaceful existence. She wants to be left alone, and she wants to be able to do a little travel, and she wants to, have her stuff and have her peace and quiet, and for people to leave her the hell alone. And she ends up having to kill some people to make that happen. And we don't care. As we're reading this, you don't care. Because the people she's doing away with, we don't really like them that much anyway, so no big loss. Anyway, this book would not be for everybody, but I loved this book. So, An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good. Very well worth the reading, and it's very quick. It's a very quick read, and there's a lot of humor. It's dark humor, about 170 pages. Highly recommended it. So, anyway, so that's it for me. You might see my husband here. Thank you for joining me. I am excited because my husband is leaving I have to work tomorrow and the next day, and then my husband is leaving on Thursday early in the morning to go down to Boise to help my son move in at college. And Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I have it all by myself. Me and the dog and one cat. And then my husband comes back late in the evening on Sunday night, and then I have Monday off, and I go back to work on Tuesday. So I have a little mini staycation, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with myself, but I am going to do what I want to do. But I'm going to behave myself. I'm not going to commit any crimes during this time, even if I feel like it. But anyway, I love you all. And hopefully I will see you again in a couple of weeks. Enjoy my husband. Bye.
So I got my stuff here. I am about to climb Mount Jumbo to get some B-roll from mountaintops for Girl Yeti and Spaceship. I've been wanting to do this all summer, so I'm excited. It's a whole day of hiking up the mountain. I think I'm in good enough shape. We'll see. The extra 10 pounds of film gear does make it a little tougher, but we're gonna go slow. I've been wanting to do this for a while because in 2015 I hiked up to the top of Mount Roberts with the camera, which is on the other side on the Juneau side there. And anyway, I made a mistake and there was only 2 minutes of recording time left on the camera when I got to the top. And there were bugs and I couldn't keep it stable. So hopefully I've corrected those problems, well, except for the bugs, can't do much about that, and I can get some better footage today. That's the Treadwell Ditch Trail. Done that. That's not where we're going today. Today, this trail emerges into this beautiful muskeg field, and I'm trying to wait for the reveal. Dun, dun, dun. That is what we're climbing. So we go through the pretty field, which lulls us into a sense of calm that, oh, this is going to be easy, and then we hit the steep mountain. It really is a pretty field. But for those of you who aren't familiar with muskeg, this is basically mud. You step off the trail and it gets all wet and squishy and your feet get wet. So, although it looks like a pretty field, it's really a big mud hole. Bye bye, sweet boardwalk. Now it gets a little tougher. Entering the woods. So the official name for this trail, I think, is Mount Bradley. But for whatever reason, it's also called Mount Jumbo. I'm not sure why. I think the trick is just to go slow. Go slow. Yes. This looks like fun. Look at this. I'm taking a water break and a break. So here, look where we are. I'm making progress. The people who built this trail did not believe in switchbacks, apparently. And this thing fell in the trail. So that makes it a little tougher. But we're making progress. The trail gets a little easier after maybe the first half a mile or so of pretty much straight up and down. We get little areas of steepness and then flat areas. A lot of roots on this trail. This is kind of neat, actually. Look, blueberries. Hello, blueberries. Blueberries are totally edible. Coming out of the trees, this is a little disheartening. Look how much mountain I still have left. I think it's worse than it looks. Maddie and I did that in 2015. If I can hike that with a beagle, it just has the appearance of being right on the edge. There's the top. This looks like a quick way to get down the mountain. I'm not gonna try it, of course, but you could bring your sled up here in the winter. I'm getting close. Oh, and there's like another peak over there. Here we are, the top. Well, sort of. That rock's a little higher, so we're gonna go over there. Well, here I am at the top. Once I recover, I'll start filming. Check out Juneau. And it's not the highest mountain. See those over there? This guy's got the right idea. He's gonna camp up here. I got the stuff filmed. It hopefully doesn't suck. While I was at it, my character Alec wears this shirt, so I threw the shirt on and sat with Juneau in the background. I thought maybe I could use that at some place in the movie. But if not, you know, hey, it's a shot, right? But I think I got some good shots of the mountaintops and things. I'm heading back because it's like 4:30 and I still have to go down. Ugh. I'm gonna go slow because it's really steep and lots of roots on the trail. But anyway, going down now, yay. Mission accomplished. Look, there's a lake down there. There's one at the top too, but now we're on our way down, yay. Not pretty. Oh, thank God. Hello, boardwalk. You're my friend. That is a nightmare mountain. Oh, going up was murder. Coming down, it was okay on my heart, but you're constantly climbing down these uneven like stairs of roots and rocks and, you know, mud. And, oh God. Okay. But the boardwalk, it's smooth sailing now. All the way back to the car, boardwalk, and then smooth trail. There's a tiny bit of not so great trail, but it's right by the car, and who cares? Oh God, made it to the car. I think I got some good footage. Man, that is a rough trail. I don't know if it's rough because I'm, you know, getting older and heavier, or if it's rough because it's just nasty. I think it's kind of just nasty. Mount Juneau is a much nicer trail, and Mount Roberts is a much nicer trail. I mean, they still exhaust you, but this trail and Thunder Mountain are nightmares. Anyway, I'm gonna go home and never move again.